Alrighty. Hello, chat. We are back for our next segment of today's 24-hour birthday donathon. I'm sure you had a chance to see the schedule that was on the screen just a little bit ago. Thank you very much for keeping an eye on that. And as always, please keep an eye out on the pinned message. We have our two guests here today. But I do want to remind you all that the reason why we're doing this donathon is largely to help, recoup my costs for my upcoming cross-country move. If you're enjoying the stream, if you're enjoying the content, if you're enjoying the show in any shape or form, it'd be really, really cool if you could donate to whatever you can. Obviously, no pressure. If you're just enjoying the show, that's perfectly fine too. My goal is to put on a good show that is worthy of not simply asking for chat to give me a handout, but also to be worthy of whatever support they're willing to give me. And that's why we're doing 24 hours, which for some would call crazy. I think it's just another Tuesday. Quite literally, it is Tuesday. So thank you all for being here. I really do appreciate it very, very much. And we're going to go ahead and jump right into things with my two guests. We have on to my left, we have Jakephobia, the creator of Talking with a Spaceman. I'm pretty sure did I get that right? Talking with a Spaceman?
Talk to a Spaceman.
Talk to a Spaceman.
Yes, I mean, same thing.
Okay.
Same thing.
All right, amazing. and we have NovedPlayer, who also runs Noved Notes, which is another podcast, podcaster. And between the three of us, we had the opportunity to participate in the Virtualis Res Film Festival about a week and a half ago at this point. And Noved won first place for the podcast award. Yep, hell yeah. Jake won third place for the award. Hell yeah. And I won second place for the podcast award in that event. Woo. So yes, we are here. I thought it'd be a great idea to get us together. I was talking to Jake about this when I first met him on like the opening ceremonies of the event. I spoke up to Jake. I'm like, hey, we should probably do something like with podcast people, like do like a roundtable type deal. So this is kind of like a test run, I guess you could say. Thank you for the congrats, Glocky. I appreciate that. So this is kind of like a test run of that. So I do hope that you guys enjoy the discussion. I'm sure they'll have a lot to offer the conversation, and we'll be here to talk a little bit about what it's like to be a podcaster in VRChat. So, as per usual, I will be glancing at chat from time to time, but typically speaking, I prefer to focus. So if I don't mention your message, it's not because I'm ignoring you. It's because, generally speaking, I just like to focus on my guests. It helps me to stay locked in. So I would really appreciate your understanding in that regard. Definitely not ignoring you. I appreciate all of you who are here. I see Codmaster dropped in. Hello, Codmaster. And anyone else who may be here. Really do appreciate you all being here. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and jump into things. I'm going to have these two individuals introduce themselves, and then we'll jump into the discussion. So we're going to go ahead and start with Noved. And we'll have you introduce yourself.
Cool. Well, hello. For those that don't know me, I'm NovedPlayer. I am a jack of all trades VTuber, VR content creator, podcaster, DJ. I do a lot of things. There's a whole long explanation, but I also do a bunch of other stuff. Like I sing on an international medalist chorus and a bunch of other stuff as well. Currently have 93 episodes under my belt when it comes to the Noved Notes Podcast. Been doing it for over 2 years now, and it's been a long journey, but a lot of fun to say the least. But yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Amazing, thank you. And Jake?
Hello, my name is Jakephobia. I am a random person in VRChat. That's it.
Smile. Smile.
I do. My podcast in VRChat is bringing up random strangers who are 18 plus to talk about their lives problems they might have that they have overcome, or seeking advice, perspectives, or sometimes just silly nonsense. But it is very much like it's very anonymous. It's like it could be you, for all the chances. And then I also do a call-in segment where I'm live on the Music Note app, and I take anonymous phone calls from strangers as well. And I'm at about 50 episodes, and I've been doing my podcast for a little over like a year and a half now. So yeah.
All right. Hell yeah. And thank you. And I'll introduce myself for people who don't know. Obviously, this is my stream, so obviously you have an inkling of who I am. But perhaps what you don't know, because it's been quite a while since I've done any of the episodes live, my name is Neferti. I'm the creator of the Sweet Talking Podcast. I have been doing the podcast for, I would say, a little over 3 years now. It has been kind of a staple of my content for quite some time. And in general, I have a little over 70 episodes. My podcast has been a little bit on a bit of a hiatus, mainly because I have been producing older episodes that were unreleased. Basically, episodes that I was unable to, in my inefficient work process, were unable to release when they were recorded. So we're going back in time this entire year, spending this entire year to go back and release those episodes that have been unfortunately neglected, which has been running over 2 years at this point. So, but yes, I do a podcast called the Sweet Talking Podcast. You can catch my most recent episodes on my YouTube channel. I now recently, as of this year, have a YouTube channel specifically catered towards the podcast, and future episodes will be released on that YouTube channel, which can always be reached through my socials, ! Socials and chat. So that's basically a rundown of what I've been doing, and in terms of me being a podcast creator in the space. So yeah, in general, I do want to kind of start things off with discussion just about what is podcasting, and why do you do podcasting? Why have you chosen that medium specifically to get into podcasting? So just to kind of start things off, what is podcasting, Jake, and what led you to get into it?
What is podcasting? Podcasting, I guess, if I were to describe it, is simply the recording of a discussion, of certain topics, delving into certain topics, and I guess either wishing to learn more about something, or to simply just, have something in the background while you work on stuff, I guess. And I guess the reason why I started it was just because, podcasting has kind of always been something I've really wanted to do. I have started different podcasts, throughout my life, but they never really stuck. And I knew in 2025 I really wanted to commit to just content creation. So I took a lot of inspiration from another podcast I like called Therapy Gecko, which if you haven't heard who he is, he's a guy who dresses up in a gecko costume with green face paint, and he does a call-in show. He takes calls from anonymous people, and given the name, he lets people ventilate and talk about their problems and stuff. And I was like, I could do something like that in VRChat. I do genuinely like to get to know people. I think it's a side of VRChat that the light is not really shined on the genuine side of people in VRChat. So I guess it was also kind of my attempt at being okay, well, hey, you can have genuine human social connection in this game if you really look for it. And yeah, I mean, that's kind of been the whole mission statement, I guess, of it all. Okay. But yeah.
All right. Thank you. And Noved?
Yeah, so kind of to jump off what Jake said a little bit, podcasting can kind of be a multitude of things. Like recording a conversation, or maybe you're interviewing people. It's kind of up to whoever is making the podcast. It's just an art form of, getting conversations out there for maybe people to learn something, or maybe people just to tell stories, or, shoot the shots and just have fun. There's a lot of different types of podcasts out there. What kind of got me started into the Noved Notes Podcast, obviously, as we all know, and maybe most of the chat knows, when it comes to VRChat and social media and content creation, a lot of it shines the most on, some of the not so good content, the trolling, the exposés, et cetera, et cetera. But at the time, there was not a lot of content out there showcasing the creators and communities of VRChat in a way that people can understand that at the end of the day, we're all people. We all have individual lives, points of views in life. We are the VRChat community, and that's kind of why the Noved Notes started. I was a part of a community way back in the day before I started. Things kind of fell off, and I was like, I kind of just want to talk to people as individuals. I may be a director of PJKT with Projekt Community, but I'm just an ordinary person at the end of the day. Sure, I do a lot of things, but nobody knows me outside of that. And I feel like it kind of goes the same way for a lot of creators and communities out there. There's a lot. I mean, there's hundreds of thousands of people that play VRChat on a daily basis, so if I get the chance to, interview a community leader or a creator and kind of understand what gets them wanting to create things in VRChat or, their communities, whatever the case, I think that means a lot, and you can learn a lot from a lot of different people. But that's kind of why the Noved Notes started. It was just a pure interest of like, I like what this person's doing. I want to find out why they're doing it, So that's just kind of where it started, and here we are today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I completely agree with both of your answers. Like for me, I'll keep my answers relatively brief, so we have time to kind of like go through some other stuff as well. But yeah, podcasting to me it's a way to tell people stories. It's a way to never forget the human connection. Or just connection in general. I think it's that is often lost, and I think podcasting is a really great way to achieve that in a format that is really up to the creator themselves. There is no one way to do a podcast. It really just kind of comes down to one's creative style and their presentation and the resources that they have on hand. Some people have a team behind them. Some people are just doing it solo, like I am. So like it's very, very much kind of up to the person to really kind of bring something to the table, and also to know what kinds of people they want to talk to. So like Jake talks to like pretty much randoms on the street. You're basically like going on the street, the VRChat street, and just talking to people, which is very, very cool.
Yeah.
So
it's very it is very like street style.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's usually in a it's a public age verified black cat on the second stage. That's usually where I do that.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're fine. And like Noved is very much kind of like I would imagine is very traditional in terms of like kind of like you're sitting in a room with one other person or two other people, and you're just kind of talking like we are right now, more or less. Yeah.
Very much so. Yeah, very much so. Compared to most podcasts that I've watched, some of them do, most of them don't, but like I actively research the person. A lot of guests have called me Nardwar when it comes to it. If there's stuff on them from like before they did VRChat, I'll bring it up. Especially if that's how they like kind of started doing what they do. So I try to go in depth with these individuals, and if they have footage of it, whether on YouTube or I lagged a little bit on YouTube or Twitch, or whatever the case may be, I'll throw it up on the screen as hey, we're talking about this. Look at it. Take a look. It's but kind of using the resources that they have publicly. Sometimes not publicly. Sometimes they'll give me extra stuff to work with. I've been told I've been on the verge of like either web series or podcast, but technically it is a podcast regardless. But Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Pretty, other than that, pretty traditional, yeah.
Yeah. Like, I like that you brought up research because I think what some people don't realize is that like typically people who do podcasts, like I do a podcast because it's very much something that allows me to connect with people and like you both of you have mentioned, showcase other aspects of VRChat that are essentially more human, more down to earth. And so I think podcasts are valuable in that regard. But the mention of research really got me. You mentioned research. Like, why, not why exactly, but like, how do you go about doing your research and why is researching a person important to you, Noved?
So for me personally, when it comes to researching, and this is something that I've grown into since starting the podcast. When I started the podcast, there was editing and there was like showing stuff, but probably about episode, I think it was like 82, I believe, onward. And there's some in between episodes too, from the beginning till then. There was just so much to talk about. And obviously, if we're trying to keep it, an hour and a half, depending, it's really hard to talk about all that. So, granted, like one of my goals was, not do any repeat episodes until episode 100 is done, which is still the case. I've had people like, oh yeah, I've done so much since your episode. I want to know if you're having people back. I would love to, but one of my goals is to have 100 individual episodes before I start having people, just to have a goal, right? But when it comes to the research side, going full in depth not only shows that you as a podcaster are knowledgeable of said person, but it also shows to the interviewee that like, oh, they actually care about what I do, or what we're about. Because at the end of the day, and I said this earlier, but we are the VRChat community. We are all one big community family, if you will, at the end of the day. We have to stick together in some way, shape, or form. And that's kind of one of the reasons why I'm, where I'm at with not just the podcast, but with Projekt Community, for example. That's why I hold conventions to showcase VRChat, not only to people in VRChat, but to outside of VRChat. There's so much content out there that, doesn't show the real side of VRChat. And what we do as podcasts, I mean, us three and a few others, I could Metaverse DJ and VRC DJ Live, for example, are also phenomenal podcasts. I'm good friends with them as well. But we realistically, while podcasting may be a niche, it very much does showcase, as long as you either listen or watch, you'll learn so many stories about so many people.
100.
We're all just one big community, right?
Yeah, true.
Absolutely.
I completely agree. Absolutely. And I do want to run the question by Jake. I know that you actually have a more like street style podcasting style, so you're not exactly doing research on people. So how do you actually keep things interesting, and how do you like kind of like go about doing I guess essentially how do you bring in and have someone to buy into wanting to talk with you, given that you're basically meeting them randomly by chance?
I leave it as like natural as possible, I guess. I'll in the community, in my like podcast group or whatever, I have like the dates and times when I do I call them podcast nights, and so yeah, people can come by. Some people will like raise their hand, or they'll put in like the text box above them a little brief explanation of what they want to talk about, and I kind of I'll just randomly pick on somebody. Sometimes, like, because it's a public instance, random people will come by and they don't know what's going on at all. And it's hard to, like, it's kind of, it has to, unfortunately, be up to them to put the pieces together a little bit. But then I could also, and this has happened before on the podcast, where some random person, first time they ever know or have seen what is happening, and I go, come on the thing, and I very much just try to leave it all natural. The conversation will go wherever it goes. I do also have I'll have guest co-hosts on as well. So sometimes I'll have like a different content creator come up. Ooh, sorry. And I'll have them like sit with me as we pick people to like come up, and they will kind of interview that person with me as well. But then I also kind of interview the guest co-host as well a little bit. So in that aspect, yes, I do like a little bit of research in whatever spare time I can, but I also don't like to do like too much, because like I like that natural flow. It's like it's coming to it's all the natural reaction of it. Also, like coming to the realization of getting to know somebody is just I don't know. It's just the way I have it kind of go, I guess. But yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I actually am kind of in between both of you. Technically I'm between both of you right now. But I mean, in terms of like your ideas of doing research. Like I like the idea of keeping things very kind of open for the possibility of something new coming up that was unexpected. I do like that. But I also think that the idea of showing a person that you actually care and that you actually have looked into them to some degree, I think that's also really important to do too, because I think it breeds confidence and the individual that you're having on, and lets them know that, hey, this is kind of this is a real thing. This you actually like care about what I have to say, for sure. And like my approach again is kind of in between both of yours approaches. I actually didn't start like fully like researching my guests, to be honest, until about, I would say, mid 70s. Sorry, not mid 70s. I'm in 70s right now in terms of my episodes, but my mid 60s, in terms of like a 60 series. 60s episodes. That's when I actually started to like deeply research people. I would obviously like have some things to talk about. I know some like basic things about them, but like actually like deeply like looking into all the things they did and like kind of really look into them. I didn't start doing it until like early 60s episodes. And that was mainly because the caliber of the people that I was talking to was raised. And I was talking to just people who I knew were very, very interesting people and who were doing very, very important things in the community, who were actually very well known in the VRChat community. And I didn't want to, I wanted to make sure that I was doing like a proper service. Because in some cases, this is like the first time they've ever been on a podcast before. And like, I love for that first time to be the best talk possible, you know what I mean? So yeah, in general, like that's kind of like my personal approach to doing research. And speaking of like just having like a certain style and certain approach to like podcasting as a whole, I'm curious how both of you integrate your personalities. Like, obviously there are other podcasters besides us, and we don't want to like, forget about them, of course. But and for the sake of our current conversation that we're having, in terms of like what you've seen and what you've seen other creators do in terms of being a podcaster, to what degree do you incorporate your personality? Is it just kind of a natural thing, or is that something that you're actually kind of putting on a certain face for the specific thing that you're doing? We'll start with Noved first.
Yeah, I mean, realistically, I don't really put on a mask. I know, ironic. But I don't really put on a mask for the people when it comes to the podcast. Because at the end of the day, we're both people. And if they weren't interested in talking about what they were wanting to talk about, they wouldn't come on the podcast. I kind of granted, I'm a yapper, and I know that. A lot of people can tell you that. But at the same time, the podcast is about them. Like I make a couple jokes here and there if it's appropriate, but one of my biggest sayings is VRChat, you can literally make anything within legal reason. I always say that, but it's one of those things like I'm just myself. Like I'm just unironically myself. Like there's a certain little scale of professionalism to it, especially the ones like I do deep dive research, which has now been practically all of them. But other than that, just be yourself. You don't have to be someone who you're not. If they weren't interested in coming on your podcast, they wouldn't really reach out, or they wouldn't have accepted the invite, depending on the situation. that's kind of how I would say about it.
Yeah. Okay. And Jake?
No, I'm right there with Noved. You know, it's if I am not genuine, then who am I? Right? Like it would be dishonest for me not to be myself. You know. So that the mission of it all, the genuineness, like it goes away if you have a mask on. But yes, no, I do agree that there has to be some professionalism to it too. You know, in terms of my podcast, I don't know how much professionalism there really is, other than simply providing the structure and the event and stuff. You know, I make sure that's all very clear and concise. But then somebody comes on and it's like they come on the stage and they're like, I want to talk about the color red. And I'm like, all right, yeah, let's talk about the color red, you know?
So you get those.
What do you feel about red?
Yeah.
And it eventually, like, what's cool is, and this is kind of a tangent, but like it delves into the audience participating a little bit too, because then all of a sudden I'm like, all right, tell me what's red. Everyone shout out something that's red, and then I don't know, it turns into a fun little thing. But that's obviously more of like the silly side. So sometimes you'll get somebody who comes on and they're like, how do I leave an abusive relationship? And you're like, whoa,
yeah.
You know. So then it gets serious, and then you're delving into like the tasks at hand and the cognitive help in yourself to get through something like that, you know. And it very much becomes a more serious thing. So, yeah,
Being adaptable to each case. Yeah.
Yeah, no, exactly.
I would say that's professionalism.
Yeah, I would say so. I would say so as well. And like,
Okay, good.
I would say like I'm basically on the same page as both of you. Like I wouldn't say a reputation, but my image on my streams is very much kind of a biker queen badass. And that's not like a mask. That's a part of me that I put on display for people to experience. But I think because of that, and that moniker that I have, that categorization that I have, I think that people don't expect me to be professional. Actually, I was supposed to like I actually forgot that I was supposed to actually put on like business attire. I totally forgot, but here we are. It's fine. So I am the biker queen doing this podcast is perfectly okay. But yeah, like I think being yourself is very, very important.
I like it.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
This is my business attire.
Yeah, true.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. So like I think it's important to like, you know, to bring a little bit of yourself to the table, but also to have a sense of like, well, to have a good balance. Like obviously be able to make jokes, but I think being able to be, you know, serious when it calls for seriousness, be able to be funny when it calls to be funny, and at the end of the day still have a productive conversation is probably the most important thing, having a productive conversation. And like for me, like I'm actually very philosophical, and like a lot of my early podcasts were very much into like philosophy and like psychology, like how do people think, and that's like a lot of like how I approach like talking to people. It's like I want to know what makes this person tick. And so that to me is a very interesting thing, and I kind of incorporate that kind of into all my podcasts in general. So speaking of how people think and how, you know, people in general like kind of come up with, you know, things to talk about, I'm curious as to what your thoughts on reaching people are. Like all three of us are very, very adamant about this is the VRChat community, this is our community, and like we're very, very like honest and like genuine about that. And like, I've shed tears on stream talking about how much I love VRChat. So like it's a very like personal thing for all of us here. So like, how do you deal with the fact that most of what we do will not be seen, compared to all of the trolling and all of the lobby stuff that is typically people's first introduction to VRChat? Not so much the human aspect, but it's sort of like the dehumanization of people that people usually see. So we'll start with Jake. Yeah, how do you kind of deal with that?
I mean, letting it be what it is. You know, it is all I can do is get the message out, you know, and the people that will reciprocate that will reciprocate that, you know. And I feel like I know the methods to my madness, obviously, but if I start to like critique it too much, or if I start to like the overthinking of it all will inevitably be the downfall. So I have to also kind of make sure I like let things slide sometimes in terms of like wanting to reach out to people, you know. It's it's hard, you know. It's hard to do that. It's hard to, it's one of those things, especially in the street style of senses, where like you want to have a good connection with this random person you just met. It's sometimes like there's like not more often than not, it's probably pretty 50-50, but like sometimes it's like, man, I wish I could have done this conversation better, you know. I could have done this better. And so that's what I mean by I have to like kind of let that slide. But yeah, no, in terms of like the dehumanization of it all, it just comes down to the persistency of getting it out there, you know, to keep doing it, you know, the discipline in yourself to keep posting, you know, because eventually something gets out there to people, you know. And it's not going to be a like one big post, one big thing gets it all out there, you know. And it's not just my podcast, it's your guys' podcast and other creators that put out these kinds of genuine things. And you know, it's the little additions of all of our stuff like that's like that just gets seen by people, you know. And maybe this is my hope copium talking, but I feel like it's starting already. I feel like and maybe it's just me being me, but like I see the other side, like I see the other side shine. It's peeking out, you know. It's just barely getting out there, you know. So I don't know. I have hopium, I guess.
Okay, I appreciate the optimism. Noved?
Yeah. So, granted, I have a little bit of a skew bias because of everything I do. Granted, when like I said earlier, you know, I started the podcast to kind of combat, you know, the dehumanization of VR, you know, people in VRChat.
Yep, exactly.
You know, so realistically, there's not gonna be a way to fully fend it off. It's the internet. There's gonna be somebody saying something bad about whatever the case may be. Somebody could say, "I like puppies," and then they say, "Oh, well, why do you hate cats?" You know, like it's one of those things. It is a little bit detrimental, especially to a lot of creators when it comes to that type of situation. But kind of what Jake said here, you know, keep pushing and putting it out there. And I have a huge skew when it comes to that, because I not only do the podcast, but I also work with a lot of communities through Projekt Community, and you know, through my own community, the Noved Squad. You know, whether it's, you know, bringing my people to their events, or maybe, you know, being like, hey, you like voice acting? I got 3 groups that are good for you, or whatever the case may be. You know, stuff like that. So, and I've had very like day one VRChat players come to like one of my random events that I have through the Live Now tab. And they'll be like, oh, like I saw this on the Live Now tab and I was kind of curious what's going on. And I will give them my best interpretation of what VRChat is. And it's long. There's no easy way to explain what VRChat is, you know, to someone who's never seen it before, or, you know, somebody who's only seen the dehumanization of VRChat, you know. But once you have to be somewhat able to explain what it means to not only yourself, but to a majority of people. There was actually a really amazing video that was showcased at the VRCAs I actually helped with by Madam Kana. And it was explaining like what it means for us in VRChat. What does it mean to us?
That was a good
she
video.
asked me to be... Thank you. she asked me to be one of the narrators for it. And to this day, that's probably the video that I'm like most proud of, because she gave me the script and I'm like, I really couldn't have said it better myself. I could have added my own twists and turns in there, but you know, as a lump summary, it's really good. But but you're going to constantly combat it, no matter what the case. I've had people in comment sections, they may not like the person I'm interviewing. Okay. There's 90 something other episodes you can watch, Not everybody's going to be, and ironically, your podcast, actually, Tupper said it the best. And everything you do, not everybody's going to like everything that you do.
Yep.
And it goes with any content creator. Whether you're a musician, an artist, or podcaster, whatever the case may be, not everything's going to be for everybody, and you have to keep that in account. But yeah. that's pretty much how I do it. Just be out there and be willing to go outside of your normal content, whether it be podcasting or whatever. There's so many people in Black Cats, optimized boxes, and everything else. Show people what it can really be about. And that's one way we can stop the dehumanization, is just being able to show people what it actually is, rather than, insert XYZ content creator, this furry kicked me out of the bar because I was blah,
the drama stuff. Yeah.
Right, the drama and the fake trolling and all that, harassment, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
The shock value, yeah. We as the VRChat community, we have a shock value of our own, and it's literally, we create things that normally would cost hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars, and we can do that in our own homes for free. I tangent a little bit, but I think that answered the question.
Well, no, take Virtualis Res, the film festival, like full feature films done in VRChat, and how much money did they really spend?
Right,
if any at all.
Yeah, minuscule, I would imagine, for the most part. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But yeah, like I love that. Like I love that both of you, you have to have a certain kind of mindset when you're creating content that deliberately is going against the grain. Like you have to have a certain kind of perspective on it, because it can be very easy to get discouraged about how oh well this thing got that many views, that much got that many likes. You get caught up in the numbers, and this is something obviously streamers have to think about too, but even people on YouTube have to think about this too. It's just very, very easy to lose your way and to well, no one's even watching this anyway kind of thing, why should I even bother? But what's really kept me going is really just the desire that my community keeps showing up. My community has been very, very supportive of the podcast, even though I haven't really done any new ones this year. But in general, they've been very supportive of it. That's been a good motivator of mine. I also think that I have something to offer the world, even if it's just communicating with somebody or talking with somebody. I do think that my approach to talking with people and discussing topics, I think, is unique. And I think it brings something fresh that I would hope would be appealing to people. But it is very much an uphill battle. Let people I do a very long form style podcast. It's on average about 3 hours to 2.45 hours to 3 hours or so. So doing a long form deal of that is pretty intense for a lot of people with short attention spans to sit through. But I want to believe that eventually, there will come a time where people will be like, you know what, I just want to have this on in the background and maybe learn something about someone. But again, there's not many people who are willing to think and to learn and put aside the YouTube shorts for a little bit, because everyone's so busy and there's so much noise, so many distractions. It's really, really hard to break through to people like that. That's unfortunately a lot of people on VRChat. A lot of people in VRChat are like that, because they want their instant gratification right now. They want the dopamine right now, and podcasts are not really dopamine machines. They're not really built for that. So the most that we can do is a clickbaity title. That's the best we can really do. So in general, I think it's very important that we keep doing what we're doing and keep trying to reach people, despite essentially it being very challenging to reach people in the VRChat community. Ironically, because we love the VRChat community so much, as it is. My next question is what is the most challenging aspect of doing a podcast in VR? And I kind of want to have this be like a free form thing. I kind of want to have like a little bit of like back and forth about this. I think it'd be very interesting. We'll say what is the easiest thing about doing a podcast and what is the most challenging thing to do a podcast, and we can kind of have a discussion about that. We'll start with Noved, sorry. My bad.
Yeah, it's all good. You're good. Like I said, it's a common mistake. So just to start, the easiest thing, just getting yourself on audio or camera. Like it's super, like compared to what it used to be, like way back in the day of like 2017, 2018, it's a lot easier to just pull up a camera, pull up an OBS, boop, you're done. That's probably the easiest part. The hardest part, granted, based on my podcast specifically, finding the time of day to edit, because I'm also a one person, show myself. And I do a lot of visual editing, when it comes to my podcast. So finding the time of day for sure to get all that done. Granted, as other friends in the podcast realm would call me, they call me a crackhead when it comes to my editing, because I will take an hour and a half long episode and get it done within like 8 or so hours, depending on how much I have to put in. There's other episodes that are a lot longer that was a lot longer to take, but finding the time, especially with everything else I do. But yeah, that's probably what I would say, realistically, from my point of perspective.
Okay. Jake?
Well, I would say, I relate to that very much, because I was gonna say that the easiest thing is hitting that record button. That's it. Starting the record button. That's really what it comes down to. Like, doing the thing is easy, but then to go back and edit it and
to polish it,
and stuff. Yes, it's a very tedious, patient thing. And so finding the time to do that, not only like schedule wise, but also like mentally, at least for me, can be tricky. Because I have to I can't just sit there and watch and like edit through everything. I have to do something else while I am like editing through. And then, because somebody will come up and try to say some silly things and get involved, and as much as I appreciate it, it also completely disrupts the conversation too, and that's just one of the things you got to deal with doing like the street style podcast like that, But yes, it is my hurdles is the mental struggle of being like, all right, let's sit down and like edit through this, and not only that, but like making the clips and stuff. Because I do it all. I got buddies that'll help moderate like an instance, and like that's about it. I do all the thumbnails, and I edit it all and try to come up with the catchy thumbnail and make the clips and stuff. And I think a lot of people think that podcasts is just you cut the beginning, you cut the end, and then you post it, and it's not. You really gotta like sit through it all, and polish it up. So that is the big hurdle there.
I would say the easiest thing about doing a podcast would be to talk to someone. I think the easiest part of doing podcasts is the act of just talking to someone, and just being genuinely curious about them. I would say that's like the easiest part for me. I would say the hardest part of doing a podcast is essentially what both of you are saying. The editing portion of it is a pain in the ass. It just is. It's very difficult to see, because you have to sit down with me doing a longer form style podcast. I have to sit down and listen and not really pay. I don't really pay attention. I listen, and I just mark. I have to make markers in the application that I use, and I make marks in it so I know what is where, so I know where to put that. But like in general, like the editing process is by far the most tedious portion, and I've actually had to like like that's why I'm like editing older episodes now in 2026 from 2024, because my process of editing back in 2024 was trash. It was bad. It was inefficient. I was doing extra steps for no reason. I had to like simplify the whole process, and just being able to do that and figure that out, what is necessary and what can be left out. That to me is like, that's the hardest part of like figuring out, okay, how can I streamline this process to be as easy and as painless as possible? And that's kind of been my goal, since like a couple of episodes in, or like recently episodes.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I think that's what has people falling short when they start a podcast, is they critique themselves so hard in the beginning. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I can't do a podcast. But it's like, no, like, you don't know what to critique until you've started making the thing. That's how art works. That's how creation works. Of course you're gonna look back and be like, why did I add that? Like my first episode, and I think it just released 47 last night, maybe. Like my first episode is complete garbage in my eyes, like, but it doesn't mean I don't like it. It just means like, okay, I see the journey of me like trying to, master this craft, I guess,
Exactly.
Yeah. I think people typically don't end up sticking with podcasts because they generally end up in a situation where they don't realize the effort it takes to like get people on. Jake doesn't really have that problem, generally speaking. But like to actually find people, at least for someone like me who isn't like I'm not plugged into the deep community like you. I have my own circles, but like Noved is very, very plugged in. It's very, very easy to like convince people. Like I'm sure if you ask anybody, they're gonna be like, yeah, of course, yeah. Like so, but. Like for me, it's also pretty challenging to kind of like, people don't realize how much, how much goodwill you kind of have to put forth so people actually know that it's not going to be kind of a waste of their time. Because I think a lot of people start doing a podcast and then they don't realize, oh, I'm going to have to do editing. Oh, I'm going to have to like carry on this conversation. And I think people... They like the idea of doing a podcast, but they don't really like the idea of like being capable of carrying on a conversation and then turning around and then like doing something completely, doing the hard work of like finding the people, scheduling the time, doing the editing, making sure that all the camera is right, making sure the sound is right, and then do it all again for like every other person. I think they like, that's why I think a lot of podcasts have failed. I actually did not know there was as many podcasts in VRChat as there are. I knew about Jake, and I vaguely knew about Noved in terms of the podcast. I knew about you in other ways, but I didn't know you had a podcast. But like in general, yeah. But yeah, I think people generally, they get caught up in like, oh, let me just do, like, they like the idea of it, but the work that goes into actually producing it is what people generally, they kind of stop after like 5 episodes typically. Like, have either of you like, I actually like you, I think you did answer like what was the easiest and hardest thing. So yeah, for a second there I thought I'd left you out, Noved. Yeah. So yeah, like, have you ever wanted to stop doing the podcast? And what was it that, what was the thing that actually, if you had that experience, what was it? What was the thing that made you almost want to stop?
Oh, 100%. I mean, that numerous times, but not necessarily in like one of my biggest advices when it comes to that type of thing is, don't look at your analytics. If you're providing something that you enjoy, you'll eventually find there will be an audience eventually for you. Like, I mean, as Jake mentioned earlier with like the episode 1, same goes for me. My episode 1, complete trash. No offense to Gear Gabo, who's my head mod. It was a pilot episode. It was like, I've known him for years. I can talk about him. I didn't do as much in-depth research because I didn't need to. But you know, as time had progressed and stuff, life has a funny way of throwing curveballs at you, to say the least. So there was times that, because at a point I was from episode 1 up until I believe episode 82, it was weekly. It was every single Friday for this amount of time, and it was editing and recording everything. I would have an episode out every week. And it wasn't necessarily a hard crash burnout, but I was also doing other things, and it's like, man, I'm just stubborn. I'm stubborn. I don't want to let something die if I can avoid it. You know, like between some of my more recent episodes, there was about a 4 or 5 month gap hiatus, if you will. But it's because I was focused on Projekt Community, or, you know, the 90 other things that I work on. And I was like, okay, I need to take a step back, come back at it with, you know, open arms once I'm ready to come back. You know, but there was a time where, especially in the early days, I looked at my analytics. I'm like, man, this just ain't it. But I really enjoy it. It's like, yeah, it kind of sucks. The analytics aren't popping off. Like I still don't have that much analytics on some of my more recent episodes. But at the same time, one of the biggest reasons why I keep doing it, there's been a few episodes now that they've came back to me and be like, hey, thanks to you interviewing us, we've had an opportunity with XYZ. Like Skits and Bits Improv is probably my best example. They had a South Korean company reach out to them wanting to get more invested into improv and VR, which is crazy.
Oh, no shit.
Wow.
Yeah, and Jazzy Senpai, the creator of VRCDN, she was reached out to by somebody because of the podcast. I don't remember the company off the top of my head, but like people have came up to me and they're like, hey, like, thanks to you, like these people are reaching out to us, but because they research our name, whatever the case, and they saw your episode. I'm like, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Like if I can somehow be a bridge for that, I'm more than happy with everything I've done. It doesn't matter how many numbers I get. Would I like better numbers and more viewership? Yeah, of course. Who wouldn't, right? But, you know, as long as one specific viewer watches it and, you know, maybe reaches out to them to whatever the case may be, whether they're a community or creator or whatever, I've done my job, you know, and that's at the end of the day, that's what makes it work. I mean, my most recent episode, they're freaking Emmy nominated. They're currently about to be they're on not the primetime Emmys, but they're in the Emmy nominees. You know, and they're like, oh yeah, like we wanted to use your episode as part of our Emmy promo reel. I'm like, that's freaking awesome. Yeah, go for it. Take
awesome.
It.
That is so cool.
I mean, that means the world to me. Like if I can make 1 or 2 or, you know, 10 people happy, I've done my job. You know, analytics aren't everything.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
I've listened to your I've listened to your first episode, you know, because I've definitely gone through and listened to your podcast, and your first episode compared to your more recent ones, like just your cadence, you know, and your I don't really know what the right word is. Like the I don't know how to explain it very well. The excitement you have, you know, is just like I see your like progression through it, because you start off very
I know
structured.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So, what a lot of people don't know about my podcast, when I first started that podcast back in 2024, I was on an HP Victus gaming laptop with a Quest 2 headset.
Wow.
And I didn't even have a proper desktop PC. You're right. You know, and it wasn't the greatest for recording and editing and doing all of the, you know, all the work. But I think it was around like episode, I don't remember what exact number, but it was right after the episode I did with Lun from Virtual Market. You know, my laptop had exploded and I couldn't do it. And my community was very kind, and I've cried about this numerous times back then. But they actually funded me a desktop setup that I'm currently using as we speak. and I've upgraded to a Quest 3, and the support has been monumental when it comes to what I do. While it may not be numbers, like, I've hit a community, or I've hit enough in the community that, like, they care and want me to continue what I do. So that's kind of why you see that progression of, like, I'm enjoying what I'm doing more because I'm not, dealing with tech issues left and right, up and down, like, going from a gaming laptop to a desktop. I mean, the recording quality was significantly better.
Yeah.
Not only, Quest 3, today, I don't know of any other VR headset that has a better mic, but the Quest 3 headset has a better mic than most of the headsets. And a lot of people may fight me on it, but it is the truth. You could tell from, just hanging out with people with index mics, with, other headset mics. It is one of the better mics out there. I don't need a $300 microphone to sound like what I do. Everything audio-wise from my end is recorded with my Quest 3. Well, the microphone, everything's recorded through OBS. I should make that clear.
Right.
But the upgrades and being able to continue it, I did kind of, somebody else pointed that out recently. Like, oh yeah, like I've watched through and like you just sound more happy to do it. I'm like, because I'm not fighting it, it's just more natural.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'm proud of you. No,
yeah.
I think your ambition really inspires me.
Hell yeah. Yeah. So I'm honestly like having that kind of perseverance, like persevering through technology, through unexpected hardships, and just dealing with that in a way that takes a lot of effort, and you have to really, really love it. I mean, for most things in VRChat that we create in VRChat, you have to really love it. There has to be a genuine love there. Otherwise, it has the potential to fall flat, which is obviously not ideal when it comes to, you have your goals, you have your dreams, and obviously you want to succeed at them. So regardless of what people say, regardless of like what's going on, being able to continue to create regardless, in spite of the things that may be working against you, whether it be analytics, whether it be technology, or even people. I think that's really like the best way to approach anything, creating anything in VRChat. So as my final question to both of you, what is one piece of advice for someone that you would want to give to someone who is considering or thinking about starting a podcast in VRChat? We'll start with Jake.
Ooh.
Just one.
Well,
The main thing. Yeah.
I guess the best advice I can give you is if doing a podcast is really, truly what you wanted, and not just podcasts, but content creation in general, art in general, your career, right? You have to tell yourself over and over again that, like, you owe it to yourself to do it. I think that's what inspires me for my podcast, because I had a conversation with with one of my coworkers. I became really good friends with him, and I went through the same thing. I was like, I don't know if I'm good enough for this. Like, I might just drop it. It's not really working or whatever. And he was like, well, Jake, like, you owe it to yourself to do it. And I was like, oh, you're right. Oh my god. Like, it's like, yeah, like, I don't know. That's just that's the best thing I can tell people, I guess, is like, you owe it to yourself to like do the thing. So like, work against your body and your nervous system stopping you from drifting away. Commit.
All right. And Noved?
So the question is, if someone wants to start a podcast, what is the biggest advice, right?
Yes.
Frickin' do it. I mean,
Shia LaBeouf.
I'd say, yeah, like, realistically, the biggest advice I can give, determine what kind of podcast you're wanting to go with. There's so many types of podcasts out there, whether you're talking with friends and just telling stories, or, you want to interview people, or whatever the case may be. There's podcasts for everything out there. Finding that style of podcast you want to do, and then just go for it, and don't let anything stop you from doing so. That's probably the biggest advice I can give. Heck, my aunt started a podcast, and she's doing freaking crazy. She has a book podcast. Shout out,
I'm gonna need some links.
I believe it's called Other Worlds Podcast. Super, I love her to death. But yeah, she got invited to like panels at like Dragon Con down in Atlanta and a bunch of other stuff. You know, and she truly loves it. She asked me for advice when starting. I'm like, oh well, you know, just do it. Like, you know, look into many different platforms. Like, yeah, I know we all do YouTube, but we, you know, I don't know about you, but I know me and Jake, like we use creators.spotify.com, and it allows us to post to many platforms outside of just YouTube. You know, Spotify.
Wait, I actually
Pandora,
I use RSS feed.
or RSS feed.
Really?
That's another way you can do
That's
it.
the one I use.
RSS feed is still relevant in 2026, really?
Yep.
Yeah.
That's insane. I thought that was
Yeah,
like...
I'll say.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say with RSS feeds, excuse me,
Yeah.
you can practically post it to anywhere, which is really nice. Creators.spotify.com does kind of the same thing. It is a little bit more limited, but I mean, there's so many platforms you can throw it on just by uploading to both that and YouTube. Like with that program or with that website, you know, you get Spotify, Apple, you know, iHeartRadio. Whenever I post my sticker and it shows the iHeart, they're like, "You're on iHeartRadio." I'm like, "Sure am."
Yeah.
But
People will be like, "You're on Pandora." I'm like, "Yeah, it's there." Yeah.
it's everywhere. You know, you never know. You'll never know what type of podcast you'll find out there. You know, not just VR, but just in general. I would say biggest inspiration, like outside of VR, biggest inspiration when it comes to that. And I'm actually curious to what you two have to say about that. I know it's a final question, but I'm curious. Like for me personally, what got me into podcasts and listening to podcasts, it's gonna be kind of a cliche answer, but it's the Misfits podcast with, you know, Swagger Souls and Fitz and all those YouTubers.
Okay.
It was a good thing to listen to.
Yes,
when I'm at work, and it was just funny, you know. It kept my the dopamine, the serotonin, it kept those up. But I am generally curious about like what, you know, if there is any podcasts that you guys are interested in, maybe not VRChat really.
Yeah. For me, my inspirations were, you know, Joe Rogan as well as Lex Friedman. Lex Friedman is more of like a scientific kind of podcaster, very much kind of on the programmer, computer science side of things. Very much also like about like, you know, very human connection oriented as well. Obviously, Joe Rogan basically brought the podcast infrastructure. Like he basically like rebuilt podcasting when it died as a platform. Essentially, he basically like made it popular again, repopularized it, we'll say. So obviously, you think what you like about the guy, but you know, he basically like he brought podcasts back essentially. And so like I that's why I have like a longer form style essentially, but also have a more kind of philosophical, you know, very you know, psychological approach to my podcast, where I'm just trying to really understand why people think and why, you know, they like or do certain things. So yeah, very, very kind of methodological and for me in that regard. What about you, Jake?
I know I stated Therapy Gecko at the beginning.
Oh,
That's
yeah, you did.
Like
You did, yeah.
the go-to for me.
Okay.
There's a Minecraft podcast I like a lot called The Spawn Chunks, which is nice. They cover like current events and stuff. Sticking to the space theme here, Astrum Space is another good one. They talk about like they just add their YouTube video essays to Spotify pretty much and like talk about it. I listen to that when I fall asleep. And then of course the Sweet Talking Podcast and Noved Notes as well. And then Metaverse Degen. Joe Rogan I listened to a lot during the pandemic. There's a marriage, like relationship, self-help podcast called To Be Better that I like a lot. And then there's one called the SCP Experience, which is like covering, if you know the SCP Foundation. I like to
That's
listen
very
to
on
like,
brand.
those articles and stuff.
Yeah.
That and then Bad Friends as well is another good one that I like a lot.
All right.
And I'm sure there's like 12 others that I like, but yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
One of the ones I completely forgot was it was actually a Netflix special for a while. Such a weird one, especially if you watch the actual video with
I
it.
think I know what you're talking about.
Midnight Gospel.
Yeah,
Midnight
dude,
Gospel.
my podcast gets compared to that like all the time.
It is such an amazing series, and even if you're I don't recommend watching it while under the influence because it'll lead to a bad trip. But it is a very much philosophical journey.
Well, that's based off of Duncan. That's Duncan Trussell. That's his podcast. I forget what it's called.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Okay.
Are we going past your scheduled time?
We are kind of overshooting, but that's okay. No worries.
My apologies.
Nah, it's totally okay. I will just kind of give my last tidbit on just one piece of advice for anyone who's potentially looking to start a podcast. I'll just kind of very briefly weigh in on that. I would say that the best thing that I think a person can do when they're starting a podcast is to understand why they want to talk to people. Why do you want to have conversations with people? Why do you want to interact with people? Why do you want to talk to these people? What innately is driving you? What is the overarching idea and concept that really makes you want to do this? For me, it was the fact that I noticed very early on, and when I immediately got into VRChat, I noticed very early on that there was a surface level perspective to socialization in VRChat. People are very surface level. They don't like to dive deep into what people are. They just want to stay they're like, how are you? Yeah, they're just very kind of, how are you? How was your day? Oh yeah, I'm drinking tonight. Cheers. It's very, very basic surface level kind of interactions. And I'm like, this is interesting. It's interesting that we have such potential here, and there's so much potential for human connection here, and no one is really acting on it, or I didn't observe anyone acting on it. So that's why I started the podcast, and that was my core reason. I do think the human connection is something that is being, forgotten to some degree when it comes to technology, when it comes to learning how to love, to care about people despite differences of opinions or perspectives or ideologies. And we're kind of losing that basic sense of you're a human being. I may not agree with you on everything, but I can still have a conversation with you. And so yes. for me, that's really that I think having a very clear cut understanding of what it means to that person, of why you want to do this, why you want to do the podcast, I think that will be that'll be like a North Star for an individual who's looking to really begin. Because if you want to do it for a longer period of time, you need something to be driving. You need something to be kicking you in the butt, because you're not going to have someone always doing that for you. So having that additional layer of this is why I want to do this. This is my deep philosophical reasoning of why this matters. This is an important thing for me to do, to contribute to the betterment of, VRChat, humanity, whatever, that sort of thing. And so that's kind of my thinking on it. And in general, I've really appreciated hearing both of your perspectives on podcasting in general. I very much appreciated it. We had someone in chat saying that they hope we get together more often. This was awesome. It was cool to see each one of you has your own perspectives.
Sweet.
So that's really cool that there was someone in chat who actually enjoyed our conversation. Hopefully more people did too. Maybe they're just not saying it. But at the end of the day, I enjoyed our conversation together. I would hope that we can do this again.
I did too.
Yeah, hell yeah. And I do hope that we can do it again.
Let's get the 7 other podcast hosts on here.
Yeah.
And get it really crazy, and we'll turn it into a broadcast, and then no one will want to listen to us.
But what I'm hearing is we need to make the Podcasters Guild of VRChat is what I'm hearing.
Maybe.
It's been something that I've been contemplating for a while, knowing how many podcasts there are out there.
About.
Yeah. You have the filmmakers of VRChat. You have the community leaders of VRChat. Why do we not have a Podcasters Guild yet? What the hell?
Well, I mean, it is very niche.
I'm gonna fax you.
Yeah.
Okay.
You have the speed of light on your side, and you're going to use a fax? That's crazy.
Better than snail mail, I
guess. I'm a patient man.
Okay, all right. But thank you very much, Jakephobia, as well as NovedPlayer. I really do appreciate both of you coming on the podcast. This was a great conversation, and we'll have to really do this again sometime. Noved, again, I sincerely appreciate you because like we didn't really have like a direct connection other than the fact that we were at the same award ceremony that one night. So like I appreciate you being willing to trust me and allow me to like coming on. I really do appreciate that. And I met Jake. I had a conversation with Jake. I didn't really have a chance to have a conversation fully with you, but I at least had a chance to talk with Jake. And also, I really appreciate both of you just kind of working around your schedules to be here tonight. And let's do it again. I'd love to do it again sometime.
Absolutely.
For sure.
All right.
Unfortunately, it's a common misconception. They always are afraid to reach out. I'm like, I'm just a person. Reach out to me. Like, the worst I can say is not right now.
I find it so funny because I'm like, what I literally do is I want to invite you to come talk. That's the title of the podcast, man.
Yeah.
come chat, dude.
Yeah. But people get very, very like kind of like they get very nervous because they think we're like big personalities. But at the end of the day, we are just people. So I appreciate you, being just a person. I try to really put that on the front page too. Like I'm just a person. I just like to create cool things. You can come talk to me, and it's all right.
I'm a person first.
True, exactly. All right, guys. I know that Noved has to get going, and I do have to kind of wrap things up. I really appreciate both of you so much. Let's do stay in touch. If there's anything that I can do to thank you and to help you out with anything, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'd love to be a part of whatever either of you have going on.
Same with you. Thank you for having us on.
Absolutely. My pleasure. Until next time, let's make it happen. All right?
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you both very much. All right. I'm gonna stay here, and I know you gotta run, Noved. Please take care. Jake's saying goodbye. If you want to say goodbye too, you're more than welcome to, Noved.
Yeah.
And and that is our podcast roundtable. I hope you all enjoyed it.
Woo. Yippee.
Yeah.
Eat your fruits and veggies.
True.